Good morning, everybody. So we might just kick off at the moment, and if anybody joins, hopefully they won't have missed too much. So welcome to HRLocker's annual leave end of year reports. My name is Christelle Rinn. And what I'm going to be going through today is I'm going to be giving you a quick overview of all the annual leave reports that are available in the system. We get a lot of questions this time of year in regards to annual leave when change of year is about to happen, any issues that, what's going to happen when the 1st of January starts, how do I give manual adjustments to people. I'm also going to just show you how to access leave from the previous years, how to increase people's annual leave if they're getting an increase for 2020. If you have any questions, what I'd ask you to do is you all have a little chat bubble on the bottom right hand side of your page, and if you type in your questions there, I can come to them at the end of the webinar, and hopefully if I haven't answered the questions during the webinar, I'll be able to answer them then. And if they're very specific to yourselves, we can maybe schedule a call afterwards and I can help you go through it, okay? So as I said, my name is Christelle Rinn. I'm the Productivity Manager with HRLocker. And I suppose my area really is to make sure that everybody is up to speed on the product and that we're helping you as much as possible. So the first area that I'm going to look at here is the dashboard. I'm just going to give you a quick view of this new little feature that we have here, which is the pink bubble over here. And this will give you any updates in regards to that we have on HRLocker. So we have a number of updates planned in the next few weeks. Anytime we release something new, you'll see it here in this little area here. The first update that you're going to see in the next week that I'd just like to draw your attention to is that we will be changing the look and feel of the product. So in the next week, when you log in, you'll see that HRLocker will look differently. The main thing to remember is that none of the features or the functionality will have changed. We hopefully have just made the usability a little bit easier for yourselves, and we'd love to hear your feedback as well. So the first area that I'm going to be looking at is quite a basic area. What I'd like you to do is select the settings section here, and that'll bring you here to the offices, the list of offices that you have in your company. Now, if you have just one office in your company, that's great. What I'd like you to look at is the leave year start date to make sure that it's correct for your company. So the leave year start date can be set per office. So make sure if you have a number of offices that the leave year start date is the same for every office. I'll just give you an example here. So if you see most of these offices here have the 1st of January as their leave year start date, but these two here have the 1st of June and the 1st of July. So just make sure that the leave year start dates are correct. And if you have any questions about changing that, just come and talk to us and we'll help you. The next bit I'd like you to look at is the time off settings. And you're going to get them here in the little settings section here and selecting time off. Okay. So once you're in this, so we're in the time off settings here for the head office. So you're going to scroll the whole way down to the bottom of the page and have a look and see what your carryover policy is. So like the annual leave start date, the carryover policy can be changed per office. So if you have a carryover policy, this little blue box here will be ticked and you will have your rule here. So say for this office, obviously it's 7 days here. So once the 1st of January happens, if somebody has 10 annual leave days that they have left, the system will only allow them to carry over 7 days into 2020. So this is an important section here. If you don't allow carryover, this won't be ticked. And if somebody has 10 days, they will lose everything. Okay, so just make sure that you've checked every office to make sure that you know what your carryover is for each office. So the next section then that we're going to be looking at is the reports section, which is up here on the black ribbon. So if you select reports, so as with all the reports in HRLocker, you have a lovely little visual here, as well as downloading everything. What you want to be looking at in this visual at this stage of the year is what your balance is. So you can look at the balance per office, per department, or per employee, or per the whole company. So this selection is for the whole company. So if I select an office here, I'm just going to select head office again. I can see that the balance is 94 days. So that balance is the remaining days that people have not taken. So in effect, the cost of carryover for this office will be 94 days. So depending on your office, this is something that you need to start addressing at this stage of the year. So either you need to contact the manager of that office, or if it's something that you're in charge of, you need to start downloading the reports and seeing who has a lot of leave that they will be losing at the end of the year. To do this, you're going to go into the downloads here in the download section. Okay, and the report that we're going to be looking at is the annual leave summary for 2019. So I will go through these reports at the end of the webinar, but the main report that you're going to be concerned about at this time of year is this annual leave summary report. So you're going to download it. I'm just going to show you one here. So this report is the really, really important report for the end of year. So what it will do is it'll list down all the employees in your company or office, whatever way you've decided to download it. And the main thing you're going to be looking at is, first of all, here, the annual leave. So if I look at Adrian Burke, for the year 2019, he's had 21.5 days. He's accrued 21.5. His carryover from 2018 was 7 days. He's had manual adjustment of -3, and he's only taken 16 days this year. So that means the main little one, the main kind of, I suppose, column that you want to look at here is column P. And this will be the balance versus full leave year report, which is what the carryover will be for 2020. So if I look at Adrian here, I see that he has 9.5 days that he's going to be carrying over into 2020. But as we looked at before, this office only allows Adrian to carry over 7 days into 2020. So at this stage, Adrian's manager should be contacting him and telling him that he's going to be losing 2.5 days if he does not take them before the end of the year. So if I just run through that report again, you'll see that there is the employee's name, what office they're in and department, and what annual leave they have had for the year, what they've accrued. The carryover here is the carryover for 2018. Manual adjustment they've had in 2019, any leave taken they've had. So Adrian has taken 16 days, which means, and this row here, row P, where's the column P, sorry, my apologies, is the main figure that you want to look at. This will be the carryover or the amount of leave that people have left at the end of this year. So if I see here, Adrian has 9.5 days that he hasn't taken this leave year. So basically, when we looked at before, we saw that the carryover policy was 7 days for this office, which means that Adrian will be losing 2.5 days if he does not take them this year. So I would recommend at this time of the year, Adrian's manager should be contacting him, telling him that he has 2.5 days to take. And if you have an agreement with Adrian that he's going to be taking those 2.5 days next year, then this is where you're going to be putting in a manual adjustment, okay? So the main ones that you want to look at are people who have a lot of carryover. So the two guys that I'm going to be looking at here are Adrian Burke. So don't forget, he's going to be losing 2.5 days, and Kathy Lyons as well. So she has 19.5 days carryover, which is a lot. Now, when we look further into Kathy, we're going to see that Kathy actually was on maternity leave. So she's accrued those days. So those days actually have to be put into next year. So let's concentrate on Adrian first. So we'll go back to the time off screen and we'll see Adrian Burke here. So do you remember I was saying he's going to lose 2.5 days? So Adrian's manager has had a discussion with him to say that he is allowed to bring those 2.5 days into next year. So we're going to scroll the whole way down to the bottom of the screen here until we get to manual adjustments. In this section here, you're going to press add an adjustment, and we're going to give Adrian an extra 2.5 days. Now, the really important thing at this stage is that you don't leave the date in 2019. The main reason why is if you leave the date in 2019, you may give him an extra 2.5 days for this year, but once the carryover comes into effect on the 1st of January, he's still only going to be able to carry over 7 days. So it's important at this stage that you change the date to being the 1st of January. And your note. So make sure that the note is written here. This just makes sure that you have complete transparency with your employee to make sure that they know where those 2.5 days came from. So we'll put in here from 2019. And so that means on the 1st of January, he'll have an extra 2.5 days added to his total. Okay. So then the other lady that we were looking at was Kathy Lyons. Kathy has quite a big balance. So she has 19.5 days. The main reason why, Kathy has been out on maternity leave. So she obviously has just been accruing days and not taking them. Kathy is entitled to bring these over into next year. So a couple of things you really have to remember here is the system will bring over 7 days into Kathy's carryover for next year, which means that you need to manually adjust only by 12.5 days so that she can bring the full 19.5 days into 2020. So much the same as Adrian, you're going to select Kathy here from the drop-down menu. You're going to scroll the whole way down into manual adjustments. I'm going to go to the add manual adjustment, put in the 12.5 days because she's going to have 7 days as a carryover and 12.5 as a manual adjustment. And that will give her 19.5 days into 2020. Make sure that the date here again is the 1st of January to make sure that she doesn't lose those days, and put in the note section here, leave for 2019. Okay, or whatever is applicable to yourselves. And if we submit that, and so then once the annual leave rolls over into 2020, she will have a manual adjustment here of 12.5 days, and she'll have a carryover here of 7 days, which will give her the full 19.5 days that she's entitled to. Okay? So the other thing that we get asked for quite a lot is, so once the 1st of January happens, you will never ever lose the overview of the leave that's happened in the previous leave years. And there are a number of ways that you can access them. From an individual perspective, an employee has access once they come in here, they'll scroll down and press this show all button. Once they press the show all, it will show all the leave that they have taken over the last few years and how many days have been subtracted for each leave request. From an admin perspective, you also obviously have an overview of this. So you can go into the report section here, go into the downloads, and be able to select the previous years that you've been in the system. So if you want to look at 2018, or once the 1st of January happens for 2020, most likely you want to just have a quick overview of what happened in 2019. You're able to select 2019 and download the report again to be able to see what the carryover was. That's the main thing. So this time of year, employees always have a question in regards to maybe they thought they were carrying over more days, or maybe they have a question in regards to annual leave. So it's really important you're always able to access that information. So I'll just show you the other reports that are listed down here. So these really give you, I suppose, more of a micro insight into the actual individual employee's leave taken. So if you download the all leave report, I'm just going to share that with you now. Great, so you can see this report here. And this report I downloaded is all the leave that Adrian Burke requested in 2018. Okay, so I can see when he requested it and the description. So I can see which days are annual leave, which days he was time off in lieu, and also how many sick days he had. And at this stage, if an individual has any questions about, well, I think I should have had 5 days carried over into 2020 and it's only carrying over 2 days, you can make the calculation here to make sure it's correct. Now, there could absolutely be a plausible reason that maybe Adrian requested this week off and he didn't actually take it, which means you can go in and delete that leave and it will recalculate the leave for you. I would heavily suggest at this stage that if you have any queries in regards to the calculations that you're not really sure about, please either pick up the phone and call us, or use the little green bubble at the bottom of your page, and we'll be really happy to go through the calculation with you so that you're able to go back to your employee with the correct data. And that's what we're here for, is to really help you do that. Okay? So those really are the main annual leave reports. The other reports that are quite relevant this time of year as well, I'm just going to show you them here. If I select the employees section, you can have a quick look at your headcount for each month, okay? But also there's a nice report here, which is the employee cost report, okay? So what the employee cost report does, I'm just going to get you another one here. Okay. What the employee cost report does is that it shows you how much an employee has actually cost you in the last year. So I'm just going to show you. So this is Adrian Burke's start date. And what kind of contract he is, what hours he's been contracted for and his salary, and then also any benefits he's getting. So he's getting internet, he's getting a mobile phone, pension. So it'll show you all the different benefits that he has as well, and the bonus that he got last year, and it'll show you the actual costs that employee was over the last 12 months. So this is a nice little report here as well, just to kind of see what benefits people have, and also, I suppose, how much they've cost you in regards to salary and excuse me, and benefits as well. Okay. Now, obviously, at this time of year, there could be maybe something that you could be giving people a salary increase, or you could be giving them a bonus. So once you download that cost report and you want to maybe make any changes, you're going to select the directory here. We'll go into Adrian Burke again, okay? Into his comps and ben section, and add a new salary, okay? So he's going to get an increase up to 90,000, okay? And I always say to guys, make sure that you're putting in that this is per year and not per month, because I've gotten lots of frantic calls from people all of a sudden that somebody's getting paid $1 million a year because they put in that they're getting 90,000 euros per month. So make sure that that's per year, okay? And the effective date. So we're going to be putting in that this is going to be effective from the 1st of January 2020. Okay, so you've got all that kind of work done for you. Now, you see that's there for him there. You can also put any bonuses that may have been paid out this year as well. So just put in that bonus there as well. And then also just have a quick look at the benefits. So one of the nice things about having the benefits on screen here is that maybe you can see that you're going to be who's on an iPhone 6, and you're going to be replacing all of them in the 1st of January. So you can remove the benefit. We'll just have a look at the mobile phone here. You can remove the benefit and add a new benefit that maybe there might be a mobile phone upgrade or something like that, and you can have that ready to go for the 1st of January as well. We'll go back to the reports up here. And the other nice report here is the CPD. So the CPD is any training that people have been doing in the system. So the best report here to download really is the full report, the employee summary. That will show you all the certs and the training that, that will be expiring. I'm just going to share you here the CPD cost report. Select the expiry dates here, and you're just going to select 2020, because these are the courses that obviously you're going to have to rebook because, or if they're relevant. So you're going to select that you're only looking at the 2020 courses. And so here's going to show you the names of all of them and who they're going to expire for. Okay, so the number of employees here that you need to rebook them for. So that's a nice little report really just to get you ready to be doing your training for next year as well. So that's really the main reports, okay? The other thing that at this time of year we get asked for is some people may be getting a holiday increase. To do that holiday increase, you're going to select the employee from the directory, the annual leave days here per year. You're going to select edit and add a new holiday entitlement. Now, very important here is that the last date of the previous holiday entitlement, you're going to select to be the 31st of December. You can only do this at the end of the year. You're going to select to be the 31st of December, to make sure that the start date is the 1st of January. The main reason being, if you put in that holiday increase comes on the 3rd of January or the 4th of January, the system is going to calculate that they haven't gotten the full entitlement. So really, really important to make sure that the end date here is the 31st of December, so that the start date here will be the 1st of January. Okay. So that I think is really that's everything really. I'm just gonna have a quick look here to see if there's any questions that anybody has had. Okay, so I have one question here just in regards to how to put in the annual leave. So you can only put in annual leave, I suppose, on you can't put it in you can't put it into the future. So make sure that even if you come into work maybe on the 2nd or 3rd of January, you're still able to put in that annual leave entitlement. Just make sure that you can edit that date in the past. So just make sure that that's the 31st of January. I'll just show you here that it's the 30th of November maybe, okay? But please, when you're doing these things, come and talk to us and we'll be really happy to help you. Yeah, so I have a question here. Can you add an extra day off for everyone in the company? So we can do that here in the back end for you. So if you're doing it for everybody in the company as a blanket, I suppose, rule for everybody, if you contact us directly, we can do that for you, and you can tell us what parameters that has, okay? Okay, so I have a question here. I think this is quite specific, that you're trying to leave people out of an office. So we can actually maybe just talk to you about that separately, and we can make sure. I would say the reason why you can't leave the office is because there's some terminated people in that office, but we'll have a look, okay? Oh, great question I have from somebody in regards to Christmas mandatory days for 2020. I actually forgot to go through this, so that's a great question. So if you go into the settings here, go back into your offices, okay? Select the offices and go into time off. Two things here you have to remember to do, because this has to be done every single year. So you need to select the public holidays first. So we're gonna go for Ireland here. So the public holidays first we downloaded for 2020, okay? So you see the 2020 guys are in there now as well. And then also if you have decided, which you really should do at this time of year, which is a really great thing to do, if you have decided what days you're going to be closed for Christmas next year, you can start putting them in here. So let's just look, when is Christmas Day next year? What day it is? So if we put in here, okay, if you put in, we're gonna put in, say the 23rd of December, maybe that's a company day. Sorry, for 2020. And this is the important bit here. So flag as annual leave or deduct from staff holidays. If this is something, if this is a day that comes out of people's leave, or is it a day that you just give people? If it's a day that comes out of people's leave, put in the flag as annual leave, or if it's a day that you're just giving to people, make sure that you don't tick that box. So I'm going to put in here December shutdown. Okay. So you'll have to do that for each of the days that you're going to be shutting down for December 2020, which is a really good thing to be putting in at this stage. Just so when people log into the system, they'll know, okay, I've got 4 days that I have to take in December for Christmas shutdown. Will staff not see their annual leave for 2020 until the first of the first? No, they'll see their, well, what an individual will see for 2020 is so right now, they will just see this leave over here. If you have if you have leave put in for 2020, it'll be listed down here. You see this day here is listed here already for them. Okay, so I'm just going to read out this full question here. Does the system allow the employee to go over their leave balance for 2019? Does it go into minus and take it from next year's balance? This completely depends on your company settings. So if you, once somebody requests leave in December, say if they request 5 days and they only have 4 days, that will be clear to the manager when they are actually approving the year. So when they go into their waiting approval, I don't think there's one there yet. When they go into their waiting approval, they will see that Adrian Burke has requested 5 days and he only has 4. So if the manager decides to give that for him, he will go into minus days. If you allow carryover, he will carry over minus days into January 2020. Okay. The other thing to remember is if somebody books leave, I'm just going to go to the Who's Off calendar here to give you a good overview. If somebody books leave, say from the 23rd of December into January, they can book that as one leave request. But 2 days will come out of their 2020 leave year balance. Even though they've requested in 2019, those 2 days will come out of 2020. Okay. Does the system send emails to employees stating their carryover as a reminder to them? We do not send any emails. I would suggest that at this stage, if an individual has a lot of leave that they need to carry over, their manager needs to contact them to say that they have a lot of leave to take over this year and they're going to leave, and to decide what you're going to do with that carryover. Just to be clear, you need to wait until the 1st of January to change the annual leave entitlement you counted in advance. Yes, you need to wait until the 1st of January to be able to do all those changes. A different topic. Can you assign CPD training to all employees or select multiple in one go? Yes, you can, Catherine. So that's quite easy. Sorry, just a bit of a detour. So if we go into CPD here, and if I go into the Manage CPD and I press Assign, so maybe we're going to do this 180 excavator, and if I assign selected, so I can actually either select multiple offices here, so assign that to everybody in the offices, or I can select from employees. I can select multiple employees to assign them as well. Okay, so just another question here. So if someone has a minus figure in 2019 without company carryover policy, do I need to take a manual adjustment for 2020? Yes, you will. If you do not have a carryover policy, when 2020 turns over, they will not carry that minus into 2020. If you want them to carry that minus over 2020, you will need to make a manual adjustment of minus days. Now, if you want to, we can go through that individually, but so if you want to contact me, but yes, it does. Where does the amount of carryover allowed get entered? Okay, so I think I'll just show you here. So that's in the settings section here. So once I select settings, your carryover can be different per office that you're in. So really important that just because you've set it in one office, you need to note that you need to set that per office. So select the office, go into settings and time off. Okay, scroll the whole way down. And this annual leave policy is where your carryover is noted. So if you want, so obviously if it's ticked off, it means you don't have a carryover policy. If you do, click it and put in subject to the maximum amount of days. Okay, so I hope that answers your question. If you are changing carryover, say for example, if the carryover was maybe wrong for 2019 and you actually think you wanted to be, maybe you entered that you didn't have carryover and you wanted to allow 5 days to happen for 2019, I would suggest contact us to make sure that we're doing it with you, to make sure that it happens as smooth as possible and that, that it's entered in correctly. So thanks for joining. I hope it was helpful to you and that I was able to clarify any questions or any areas that you wanted me to go over. I will be sending on the webinar to anybody in case you want to go through anything or have a bit more further insight in case you missed anything. But please, if there's any area that I didn't clarify for you, or if you still have questions about, please drop me an email directly, or use the best way to do it is use the little green bubble at the bottom of HRLocker and just ask a question, and somebody in the support team will get back to you straight away. Okay. So have a great Christmas, everybody, and hopefully we'll be doing another webinar in January. And if there's any areas you guys want me to go over, please drop me an email and any suggestions. Okay. So thanks very much, guys, and take care.